This case is so disturbing that even the police officers who witnessed it struggled to describe what they saw. And at the center of it all was a college student with everything going for him. His name was Austin Harrouff. Austin Harrouff was born on December 21st, 1996, to a father who worked as a dentist and a mother who was a pharmacist. He grew up in Palm Beach County, an area known for its wealth, luxury, and coastal beauty, a place where, as of now, 66 billionaires reside. From the outside looking in, his life appeared ideal. But beneath that surface, cracks began to show. In 2010, when Austin was just 13 years old, his parents divorced. Within a year, both had moved on and entered new relationships. It all happened quickly, and for Austin, it was confusing. Still, he adapted. He remained in the family home with his mother while his father relocated only minutes away. And for a while, things seemed normal again. Then high school began, and right away, Austin stood out. He was in advanced classes, consistently performing near the top, and physically, he was imposing, about 6 feet tall, weighing around 200 pounds. And so naturally, he joined the football team. But there was an issue. He didn't have the aggression coaches were looking for. They tried to push him and they constantly tried to get a reaction out of him, but it never worked. That just wasn't his nature. Austin was calm, easygoing, and more than anything, he cared about helping people. By his senior year, that desire had become a central part of who he was. Whenever he spoke about helping others, his expression would change. He'd light up and he couldn't stop smiling. His father even gave him the nickname Happy Boy. As graduation approached in 2015, everything seemed to fall into place. Austin had been accepted into Florida State University's pre med program, exactly the path he had been working toward. And that summer felt perfect. He spent time celebrating with friends and family, enjoying the moment. Then finally came the drive to Tallahassee, where the university was located. They helped him move into his dorm, shared a final hug, wished him luck, and they left. And just like that, a new chapter began. And at first, everything went smoothly. On paper, his freshman year looked successful. Good grades, a relationship, a growing interest in bodybuilding, even an increasing presence on social media. But internally, things were changing.
Know that they're not me, you know? I know what's right for me. I don't need drugs. I know that they can change me.
Change me.
We're all the same, though. Peace out. Peace.
Hello. Um, Hi guys. Just, well, I just wanted to say that the best, I think the best exercise for, your chest muscles would probably be the bench press. It just was the best. Like, I just want to say that. And, like, anybody who disagrees is such an asshole.
In his journal, Austin wrote about feeling rejected, like he didn't belong, like there was something about him that pushed people away. He fixated on it, believing if he could just be more confident and more outgoing, people would accept him. Then drugs entered the picture. He started taking alcohol, marijuana, Vyvanse, and eventually stronger substances such as LSD, mushrooms, and MDMA. Moments of intense highs followed by deep crashes again and again until eventually his sense of reality began to slip. Anxiety and dark thoughts started to take over. Near the end of the school year, his search history revealed what he was going through. I think I'm crazy. What should I do? Do I need sleep? What happens if I don't sleep? This wasn't just stress anymore, he was losing his grip on reality. When he returned home for that summer, it didn't take long for his family to notice something was wrong. Within days, it was obvious. Austin moved his bed into the garage and he claimed the house was filled with demons. At night, he wouldn't sleep. He stayed awake, patrolling the house, and every couple of hours, he would knock on doors, telling his family he was protecting them from demons. And at first, they didn't know how to react. They were scared, confused, and they began locking their doors at night so Austin wouldn't come in. and they still didn't take any action. They were kind of just hoping it would pass, but it didn't. And eventually they confronted him and asked him what was going on. And Austin admitted to heavy drug use. And so, of course, they focused on that and they believed getting him clean would fix everything. But even after he claimed to stop, nothing improved. If anything, it got worse. By mid August, they were preparing to use the Baker Act, a 72-hour involuntary psychiatric hold. But by then, it was already too late. On August 15th, that morning, Austin showed up unannounced at a friend's house where he knocked and the door opened. And Austin looked straight at his friend and asked, "What year was I born?" The question caught his friend so off guard that he didn't even know how to respond. 1996? Where Austin gave no reaction, no acknowledgement, and he just turned and walked away. So the friend stood there confused, unsure of what he had just witnessed, and he tried to brush it off, but couldn't. Something felt wrong. And so after a few minutes, he gave Austin a call where Austin would answer. And what they said isn't fully known, but somehow the friend convinced him to come back just to hang out, where in reality, he just wanted to check on him. And so Austin returned, and not long after, they met up with other friends, including Austin's sister. As a group, they decided to go to the beach, and for a while, everything seemed normal again. But on the way, Austin told them he needed to stop at home first. He said he'd meet them down by the water. When he came back, he had changed. Long sleeves, sweatpants, heavy clothing despite the heat. His friends laughed a little and joked about it, and suddenly he snapped. "If you call me crazy, I'll fucking kill you." And at that, the group went silent. Caught off guard, his friend quickly stepped in and tried to calm things down and told him they were just joking, it's nothing serious. And just as quickly, Austin settled down again. But shortly after, he pulled his sister aside and told her, "I'm half horse and I'm immortal."
I think this boy's cheese slid off his cracker.
And his sister quickly became alarmed and was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And she urged him to get help. And surprisingly, he agreed. And for a moment, he seemed aware, but of course, it didn't last long. Later that evening, Austin, his sister, and his friend headed to Duffy's, a local restaurant. They were meeting his father and his father's girlfriend. As they walked, Austin suddenly said, "I need to test my immortality," and then stepped off the sidewalk and walked straight into traffic. And his sister reacted instantly, pulling him back and stayed close to him the rest of the way, kind of guiding him, keeping him from stepping back onto the street. And by the time they reached the entrance, he was calm again, like nothing had happened. Inside, they joined the others around 7:45 p.m. They were seated in a booth at the back of the restaurant. A surveillance camera captured what happened next. And after about 3 minutes, Austin stood up, walked away from the table, and started toward the bathroom, then stopped, turned around, and walked straight out the door. And no one seemed to notice because about a minute later, he came back, sat down, and acted normal like nothing had happened. Then, less than 10 minutes later, he got up again, but this time he just went straight out the door. And a few minutes later, his mother, who lived nearby, heard someone enter her home. And so she went to check, and of course, it was Austin. He was in the kitchen drinking vegetable oil and eating Parmesan cheese straight off the counter. And so she rushed over to him to stop him, where he would comply. And then he went upstairs to change clothes, and she drove him back to the restaurant and watched him walk inside and left. And so about 30 minutes after leaving the second time, Austin returned with a different shirt, a different hat, but sat down again, acting like nothing happened. And at first, no one spoke, and it was kind of this awkward silence. Then his father would turn to Austin and say, "What is wrong with you?" And something snapped inside of Austin where he stood up and grabbed his father and kind of pushed his head back into the seat. Then suddenly let go, turned, and stormed out of the restaurant for the third time. But this time he would never return. His father's girlfriend called the police, reporting him missing, knowing that Austin was unhinged and anything could happen. Roughly 4 miles from the restaurant, 53-year-old Michelle Michigan sat in her garage watching TV. Her husband, 59-year-old John Stevens, had taken their dog out for a walk, so she was alone. They had been married for around 2 decades, and between them, they had 3 children from previous relationships. They were known as warm, welcoming people, and the garage was their favorite place, almost like a second living room. And they kept it open, talked to neighbors, invited people in, and they recently retired where they were looking forward to this stage of their life. Across the street lived their neighbor, Jeff Fisher, a close friend of theirs. That night, Jeff had gone to bed early, but then he heard something, a sound from outside, a woman screaming. And so he ran outside, looked across the street, and saw a young man near Michelle's car. That man, of course, was Austin Harrouff. And Jeff didn't know what led to that moment, but something was clearly wrong. And so he ran towards them. But before he could reach the driveway, Austin attacked. He grabbed Michelle and threw her to the ground and started pounding on her. And so Jeff rushed in, and Austin turned to him and, quote, said, "You don't want any part of this." And Jeff, knowing he had to step in to save Michelle, he charged towards Austin, and where Austin struck him, but Jeff stood on his feet and he grabbed Austin by the collar and threw him face first onto the pavement. And for a second, it seemed like he had knocked Austin out, but he didn't. Austin got back up, and suddenly Jeff felt sharp pain across his face, his neck, his back, and he looked down and saw blood running down his arms. Austin had a knife, and realizing how serious it was, Jeff ran and he made it back to his house, locked the door, and called 911.
Police and medical. Young man beating up a woman across the street.
Are either of them injured? Can you tell from where you are?
Yes, there's a girl laying on the ground. He beat her up. I ran over there. I'm bleeding profusely here at the moment.
Okay.
I don't know what happened.
Can you tell if she's conscious?
No, it does not appear so, no. I've been stabbed in the back. I'm bleeding pretty
As he's
bad.
sitting there waiting for the police to arrive, kind of coming in and out of consciousness because of the loss of blood, he hears screaming and animal-like sounds. And then minutes later, he would hear sirens. And police arrived within moments. The first officer followed closely by a second officer, and we'll call them Sydney and Peter. Sydney was already moving up the driveway with her weapon drawn, and Peter pulled in behind her and followed. And at first, his view was blocked by the vehicles in the driveway, but as he moved closer, something caught his eye. A wide trail of blood running down the concrete. And he went around the car and reached the top of the driveway, and that's when he saw John. He was lying on the ground, barely moving, looking up at the officers, saying, "Please help me, please." And Austin was on top of him, holding him down. And at first, Peter couldn't fully process what he was seeing, only that something terrifying was happening to John and he was in danger. And Sydney couldn't shoot without risking hitting John, and so Peter decided to use his taser, and he positioned himself ready to fire, but just before he fired, he realized what Austin was doing. Austin had his hand inside John's mouth, pulling at his cheek and biting into it, tearing flesh away and swallowing. And so Peter fired his taser at Austin, but it had no effect. Austin didn't react at all. It was as if he was completely unaware of the officers. And so Peter moved in and began kicking him in the head, trying to break his grip. And each time, Austin would get sent back, then immediately go back down, continuing to bite John's face off, completely focused on eating John's face. Then more officers arrived along with a police dog, and the dog would be released and clamped onto Austin's arm, pulling it away. But Austin tore free, injuring his own arm from the dog's teeth, and resumed what he was doing. Again and again, the dog engaged, and each time, Austin returned to eating John's face. Finally, with coordinated timing, the dog pulled his arm back, and Peter delivered a strong kick that knocked Austin completely off of John, where Peter and the other officers forced him to the ground and secured him in handcuffs. But as Austin resisted, he shouted, "Kill me, I'm eating humans, kill me," repeatedly. And so finally, with the help of all the multiple officers, they finally subdue him. And after Michelle was found in the garage, she had died from blunt force trauma. John was still alive when police arrived, but later died from his injuries. It's believed he returned from his walk, saw what was happening, and tried to intervene to save his wife, but sadly would not be able to, and both would not survive. Their neighbor Jeff survived his injuries and eventually made a full recovery. After being restrained, Austin became unresponsive. He had ingested toxic chemicals, likely from the garage and probably from the vegetable oil, His organs began to fail. He was taken to the hospital and placed in a coma for 11 days. He survived and later recovered physically. And at first, investigators believed drugs were responsible, but toxicology results told a different story. Only a small amount of THC was found in his system, nothing else. And when questioned, Austin initially said he didn't remember, and later he described seeing a dark figure with a white face, something he believed was evil. He said he ran from it and ended up in the neighborhood where he saw the open garage and went inside believing the people there could help him. And he claimed when Michelle came out, because she heard him in the garage, he believed she was a witch, and after that, his memory fades. Many people doubted his account, and when I first heard this story, I thought it was complete bullshit as well, but forensic psychiatrist Philip Resnick reached a different conclusion. He believed Austin was experiencing a severe psychotic episode, possibly involving a rare condition where someone believes they are no longer human. They believe there's something animal-like, something predatory, most often a werewolf. Even when confronted by police, attacked, and threatened, Austin never attempted to defend himself or escape. His behavior suggested a complete break from reality. In a later interview with Dr. Phil, Austin expressed remorse and said he didn't understand what had happened. But for the victim's family, there are no answers that can undo what happened. Ultimately, Austin Harrouff was found not guilty by reason of insanity on November 28th, 2022, where a Florida judge accepted this plea just before his trial was set to begin. But Austin was not released from custody, but rather transferred to a secured state mental health facility on January 31st, 2023. Well, that's the end of today's story. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want to see more stories like this. Enjoy. And be safe, people. These motherfuckers are crazy.